Well, hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Wind Down Wednesday with my Lady of the Week. Guys, when I tell you it has taken me almost a week to get some sense of normalcy back after coming from Africa, that was indeed the longest flight of my entire life. Oh, hey, everybody. I see some people coming in. Hey, the Hayes 84. Hello, hello, hello. Listen, we flew from Dar es Salaam to Dubai. That was 5 hours. Then we flew from Dubai back to LA, which was 16 hours straight. So in total, was that 21, 22 hours? And when I tell you that I am like finally feeling like I am well rested, because my body has been telling me that while it's 3 o'clock here in LA, it's like 4 a.m. in Africa. And so for the past week, I have just really been trying to get acclimated. So yes, we weren't here last week, but we are here once again for another Wind Down Wednesday, and I appreciate you guys being here. Okay, guys, this week's Wind Down is a doozy. The title of this one is called Self-Love, and I'm not talking about self-love in the sense of going to get your nails and your hair done and that. I'm talking about self-love in the sense of your mental and your spiritual love. In order for us to teach people how to treat us and love us, we must first know how to love ourselves. And so this week's Lady of the Week, I call her the ultimate survivor, and you guys will find out in a minute. I also think that for many of us, we have to define love, what that looks like, because so many people grow up on what I call struggle love. You know, you've seen your grandparents or maybe even your mom and dad go through some things in that relationship, and we all have determined that that's what love is and what love looks like. And a lot of it is dysfunction. So, anywho, before we get started, you guys know the drill. Let's go ahead and raise our glasses. Clean, 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 clean. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Miss Julie Gbbs into the wine room, guys. So hold on for 1 second while I connect her. How's everybody doing this evening? Hope you guys are well on this Wednesday, hump day. All right, Miss Julie, come on into the wine room. Okay, I see something.
Okay. Yeah, I am so sorry. Let me flip this around. There we go.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. I love the glasses. I love them.
Oh, thank you. Either you're going to be a blur or you're going to be bright and clear. Which one do we want?
Look, I wear glasses too, but mine are to see long distance, far away.
Okay.
And so are those?
Mine is to see up close.
Yours are readers then. Yours are to see up close.
Yes.
Well, wonderful.
It's an age thing.
Yes, it is. But it's funny how I have the reverse, so I don't know what that's about. But anyway,
Right.
welcome.
1 second.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I thought I had this set to where it would stand up a little bit better, and I apologize.
No.
All right, there we go.
Let me know when you're ready. You all set?
I am.
Yeah. Well, you look beautiful.
Thank you. Likewise.
I love the red lip.
Oh, hey, I take it after you.
Okay.
It's all for you, trust me.
So before we get started, I always like to raise our glasses
Absolutely.
so that we toast to a great conversation. Cling, 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 cling.
Clean.
And as I was sharing with everyone, I said the topic of this week's wind down is self-love.
Right.
I don't want to give too much away because I want you to be able to share your story.
Right.
So before we get started, if you can tell everyone where you're from and who you are.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Julie Gibbs. I am currently residing in Tampa, Florida, and I have pretty much lived in Tampa all my life. We moved here in 1983 from Indiana, so Florida's home for me, and I consider myself a native. I'm not a transplant anymore.
Nice. I love Florida. It's such a beautiful, beautiful state. It really is.
It is.
Okay, so there's really no other way to do this but to dive into this conversation. So, Julie, like I said, you are the ultimate survivor. You've had many setbacks in your life. You are a survivor of domestic abuse, rape, and sexual assault. And so, as you put it in your own words, you landed, what you say, in the bottomless pit of despair. What were the hurdles and what made you keep going after all of these things happened to you?
Some of the hurdles that I went through, and I hate calling them hurdles because, yes, hurdles, but they didn't stop me. You know, I kept going and I found my purpose through all those things. But some of the things that held me back in those moments were I was a twice divorcee. I 4 kids, 3 fathers.
Wow.
I lost jobs. I was homeless, living in my car with my now 25-year-old. Mental illness was very, very real for me. Although I didn't recognize the mental illness when I was going through it, as I healed, I understood that I was very mentally ill and needed help. So those hurdles put me where I am today. And, you know, everyone always held it against me or held it over my head. You're never going to be anything. You're never going to amount to anything. You've got all this stacked up against you. But it was always, for me, I came from a great family. I didn't come from what I had become. Some of the things that I did become, I believe, are generational curses from being adopted and things like that we'll talk about in a little while. But I knew that I needed better, and I knew that I deserved better. So those hurdles, yes, hurdles, but I overcame through that process.
Okay, so 2 things I want to mention. So first, you said you didn't come from that kind of background, right? Because I think often we tend to emulate what we see growing up, right? And so you didn't necessarily have any of those things growing up. So let's talk about the domestic abuse. And so how did you find yourself in that particular situation?
I attracted how I felt about myself. So I attracted abuse. I attracted toxicity. I attracted all those things that kept me in that way of life. I never thought I could have better because this is what I had become and this is what I had allowed. So so for me, it was normal. And I was just talking to a friend of mine, actually, before this live. My normal was that, you know, I kept going back to the same things over and over and over because I didn't know any better. That's the best I could get. This is all it was ever going to be. So why not stay here? So that's how, you know, I ended up there. And we can talk about how I came out of that. But yeah, that's how I got there.
Absolutely. I say that people learn to operate in dysfunction, right? And oftentimes you don't even know that it's dysfunctional. And then sometimes when something good comes along, you don't even know how to receive that, right? So
you don't recognize it.
You don't recognize. So talk about that a little. Talk about maybe, you know, like you said, going through that. What was your headspace as you're going through that?
The headspace, again, going back to what I recognized as my normal had been my normal for years. So when I'll put it in perspective, my ex-husband, he was an amazing father. I can never take that away from him. What our problem was, using him as an example, we were 2 very, very broken people trying to come together to not be broken. And it was never going to work because we had never healed from our own problems. So we were bringing our problems together, trying to make it work, and it just was never going to be. So when you're part of that cycle and you keep meeting the same people that are just like you, it's normal. So I just, you know, that's how it happened for me and how it continued to happen for me for 15, 20 years.
Wow. So then at what point did you decide, Julie, enough is enough. I've had enough. This is it. What was the turning point for you?
Honestly, it was when I was on the floor with some knives attempting to take my life,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing my babies standing over me, mom, don't do this, mom, no, no. And then getting away from them and going down the street because I wanted to run in front of a car. And I knew in that moment that I needed to live for something greater than myself, because in that moment, in those feelings that I was having in such desperation, it wasn't for me. I could not do it for me. It had to be something greater, and it was my children. When I said, okay, God, you're going to have to take over. And I wasn't a pill person. I didn't want to take pills to balance my emotions. I said, I'm going to give you 3 months, God. If you can't fix me in 3 months, I don't know what's going to. I was very specific with God because I was at the end of my rope, and going through so much, being homeless at one point, living in my car with my now 25-year-old daughter. Just some really, really bad decision-making processes, all in the search of love. That's all I needed. That's all I wanted. All I ever desired.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to take away from your questioning at all.
No, it's fine, please.
What my biggest issue was, I lacked self-love. It's not because my parents didn't love me. They loved me like crazy because they chose me. I was adopted at birth. What happened, I believe now, looking back and going through the therapy that I went through, yes, they loved me, but there was still a part of me that was given up for adoption. Somebody didn't want me.
Right, that
So for
void.
years, right, even though as a child and as a teenager, I truly didn't understand that. But as I, again, went through therapy, I recognized that all those things outside of, the abuse, the sexual abuse that I went through as a teenager, but it was all in the search of love, because I wanted that love that came from my mom, the one who birthed me. I didn't know it then, but so going through the cycle of understanding love or not understanding love, again, I made horrible decisions, absolutely horrible decisions, and put me in some really bad situations. But one of my dear friends told me, you've got to understand real love. Love doesn't necessarily come from a man. Love comes from Christ. So what I need you to do is go to the book of 1 Corinthians 13 and read that chapter for me. So I'm like, okay, what is 1 Corinthians 13? Even though I grew up in the church,
Right.
I took me back. And so she said, pull out scripture, 1 Corinthians 13:4. Love is patient, love is kind. And replace love with the person that you're struggling with. And I'm going to change names for,
Right.
obvious purposes.
Obviously, right.
But is Billy patient? Is Billy kind? If this is God's standard of love, which it is because I live by his truth, then why am I wrestling so deeply and why am I fighting for something that's never going to be? I was fighting with the worldly side of what love is. And I knew I needed to make a better choice. And when I started really diving into the word and really understanding what God meant for me, that's when things started to turn around for me.
Yeah, because so many of us look for love in all the wrong places.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because whenever I mentor young ladies, and whenever they're in relationships that are going awry, and they say, but I know he loves me. And I said, well, tell me why, right? And I said, well, why does he love you? Or how do you know he loves you? And they really can't give me a firm answer,
right.
And so it becomes that romantic love, that they dreamed of or whatever, but he's not even doing that,
Right.
And so they end up, like you said in the beginning, attracting what they are, and you keep repeating the cycle. And I always say that God always whispers before he shouts.
Absolutely.
And that if we can learn to listen to the whispers, oh my God, we save ourselves so much heartache, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's just, a lot of us just aren't in tune with that. And to your point, that looking for that love, that fix, that void that perhaps we didn't get from our parents or, an ex or what have you. So let me ask you this. You talked about being homeless. So where and how old were you? And tell us how that came to be.
So it was when I was around 23 years old. I became pregnant with my now 25-year-old daughter, and my parents actually didn't accept my choices in who I became pregnant by, which happened to be a black man.
Okay.
And it was very, very difficult. They actually, it's hard for me to talk about now because I've healed from this situation with my parents, and bless my mom's heart, she's moved on to heaven and everything. But in that moment, first of all, they knew that I was not well. They knew that I was making bad choices, and bringing another child into this world was probably not the best decision. So that was number one. They went to court against me to take my now 30-year-old from me with her father, and that was probably the best decision. And now, looking back at it, that was probably the best thing they could have done to protect her and to give her a life that she would have had with me. But having my now 25-year-old, I didn't have my familial support system. It was just me. I was in college, living off of the system welfare, and I was just stuck. And the church had taken me in, but the church, one of the pastors, he and his wife saw that I was making bad choices, and they were tough love, and they said, you got to find somewhere else. So first I lived in a trailer with no electricity outside of Orlando in Apopka for a couple weeks. One of a construction worker heard about me and said, you can stay here. My mother just passed away, and you can stay here for a little while. And then I didn't have that place anymore. So I lived in my car, and then when I would need to take a shower, since I worked at an apartment community, leasing apartments, I'd go into the apartments, take a shower, and they wouldn't know it in the mornings, and then get off to daycare and go to work. So that's how it worked.
Wow. Wow. It's important because I think that sometimes, when it comes to race, I think we often think that we don't have a lot in common, right? And we actually do have a lot in common. And one of the things that I'm really happy about you coming on here tonight is to show that we all go through challenges in life, and it doesn't matter what color you are. It does not discriminate. Abuse does not discriminate. None of that is discriminatory. And so now you have 4 children. And so as they learn about your story, how are you preparing them, for the things that they're going to find out about their mother?
Actually, I was part of 2 best-selling books. One, the first one was I Forgive Me. That was the first chapter, or one of the chapters in the book. And then I was part of a Christian devotional that went #1. When I decided to put that first one out with my colleagues, I went to all my children and I said, I need to read this to you because I need to know that it's okay with you, that these are things that I'm putting out there. And it didn't happen until they all kind of graduated from high school. So I think it was supposed to be that way, to protect them. And because I never wanted any backlash from them. They went through enough, with me and their dad. And so I didn't want that for them. But I've been truthful. I've been honest with them because I'm always, telling them it's better, to live in truth than anything else. People may not like to hear the truth, but the truth is the best way to live. So, and they've all embraced it. They've seen where I've come from and where I am today, and just so supportive. And I just couldn't have asked for better children to be blessed with.
That's amazing. So I know that you mentioned therapy, doing that work. And so tell us about, when you finally said, because a lot of people, when they think of therapy, they think of it in terms of something negative. And so they're unwilling to try it. So what finally made you come to terms and say, I have an issue. I have a problem. You talked about mental illness. What was that made you come to that decision to say, I really need to get some help?
Church can, and of course, God is, my #1, but I knew that church church and God couldn't totally fix me. I needed some other guidance that would help me dig kind of back into, and I speak about this a lot, getting to your genesis, getting to where the beginning, because you can't really, it's like in order to know God, you can't start in the book of Matthew and know who God is. You got to start back in back in Genesis and understand so you can get the full understanding of his glory. So that's what I tell people. We are created in his likeness. So we have to get back to our root, get back to our genesis and understand that. And the only way that I could do that was the help of a therapist. You know, where was this coming from? This wasn't coming from this incident that happened when I was 13. This is deep rooted. This goes back, and you have to really dive into that and be open to that, because that's where, if it's a good therapist, will take you there. Right. And I will tell you, any good therapist has a therapist. Absolutely. So it's not a thing that you're crazy if you have to have a therapist. It's healthy to have a therapist, if I can put it that way.
So how important in this process to you was forgiveness in your healing?
In this process, how was it? I'm sorry.
In your process of healing, how important is forgiveness in that process?
You can't heal unless you forgive. They work in tandem. And the thing about it is healing only comes when you surrender and you recognize, first of all, you hold yourself accountable, you take responsibility, and then you forgive. So once you go through those steps, for me, I was healed. Now, do I continually heal still to this day? Absolutely. You know, there's triggers always through life, and I have to kind of take myself back and go through my little steps of, you know, how I can process those things. But yeah, you can't have healing without forgiveness. There's no way.
And I always say forgiveness is really for you. It's not necessarily for the other person. Right.
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah, I strongly believe that. And once you're able to do that, you feel so much lighter.
Much better. Yes, you know absolutely.
I experienced molestation as a child, as a 5-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And I remember coming home. I was in the military, and I came home, and the young lady who was responsible, she apologized to me. And, you know, in that moment, I just was like, really? Like, I wasn't able to accept it. And it wasn't until I went through the therapy and understood that, you know, it really wasn't my fault. You know, this was a person who was really sick at the time, but also understanding her life and where she came from. And to your point about the genesis of everything, right? Really getting to the heart and the root of the matter. And that's the work that you have to do in order to heal, so that, to your point earlier, we don't keep going from relationship to relationship, or brokenness to brokenness to brokenness. You know, so what would you say? Because when I think about your story, when I read your bio, I am just like floored, you know, because for the average person, Julie, they would not have been able to come through this. You know, so you are so resilient. And so what are some of the traits that you feel lead to that resiliency as a woman?
Some of those traits is being realistic with myself and the expectations for myself, being open to healing, having self-control. You know, I certainly don't put myself in the same positions that I would have put myself in before, because it's just like, you can't take a crack addict and put them in a crack house. Right. You know, they're going to fail.
Right. So, those triggers are going to, right.
Exactly. Being motivated to want to do better. And that takes me to a point that I really wanted to impart, is that, you know, I was so desperate. And when I say desperate, I was searching for surviving. When you're surviving, you're desperate. When you're thriving, you're living. So I was motivated, but I was motivated to survive, but I was not motivated to thrive. So you have to shift the mindset of where you're allowing your energies to go. You know, the tongue is very powerful, and the things that you speak. Yep, and there's life and death in the tongue. So what you allow yourself to speak into yourself, and even to the extent of what you allow people to speak into you. And I'm very funny about people touching me, about touching my head, I'm the same way. Yes, this is my crown.
My space, like absolutely, yeah, for sure, for sure.
And I guess another one would be being empathetic, because I had to insert in going through this whole thing and recognizing where I went wrong. I had to recognize and be empathetic to myself, you know, because I endured all that. I allowed myself to go through that, and I survived, and now I thrive. So I think that's, you know, being resilient. Those are the things that come to my mind, and just being like, being calm, being, you know, steady, being obedient, and all those things had to come through day-to-day work. What you see today is work, is about 8 years worth of work. And when I say I lived in a very toxic environment and I was a very toxic person, and when I say I was toxic, I take responsibility for the things that I did. But I will say this, staying in a toxic relationship and allowing that toxicity makes you toxic, but it also is that you're toxic too. So you become what you're around. So, you know, I was so good about saying, oh, he's this, he's that, but in essence, I was too.
That
you
pointing
know,
that finger, right? And they say when you point the finger, you've got, you know, three of them
three
pointing
coming right back
at you. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
There's definitely the accountability that you have to take. You know, and all
absolutely.
of this. Can you just repeat something you said about surviving and thriving? I love that, and I don't want our viewers to miss what you just said, because I think that is so important.
When you survive, survival is desperation, because you're just trying to survive. But when you thrive, you live. You know, you're living. You're in freedom. You're in peace. You're in joy. You know, but in survival, it's just that survival of the fittest. Like, I'm just going to do what I can to survive. And we never want to live in, exactly. We want to live and thrive and not be desperate and just survive. So, yeah.
No, I love that. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Okay, so you and I have something in common, to where we're both in the insurance industry.
Yep.
But we've also taken a leap of faith to really follow our passions. And so can you talk to us about what or how you decided to go after the thing that really fuels you, really, you know, that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, so a few years ago, when I wanted to tell my story, my son wanted a beaded bracelet, I think, and he's like, Mom, can you make a beaded bracelet for me? And I'm like, oh, or can you buy this? And I'm like, no, but I can make it, kind of thing. And so as I started making them, people wanted them. And I'm like, well, I can make these bracelets and make this my thing, where I'm giving people something to wear to remind them of their truth and who they were created to be. So then, between, you know, being able to tell my story and give God the glory for all that he's brought me through, he didn't save me to be quiet, so I'm not going to be. And so then I started speaking, and I was invited to preach down in Mississippi, so that was really a lot of fun. And then just being able to go around and spread the word and be a picture of hope for people, because, you know, everyone thinks that, you know, the next person next to them has this wonderful life, and you have no idea. You know, looking at you and I, no one would ever believe that we've been through what we've been through.
Absolutely.
And so I want that person that's struggling, I want that person who thinks that there's no way out, to be able to look at me and say, if she can, I know I can. And so that's led me to one of my girlfriends over in Orange County, which is in Orlando, started a program about a year ago going into the jails and working with the youth in the juvenile detention center. And she started a company, and you can check it out. It's called The Verb Kind. And we're going all over the state of Florida, signing you up, me up, you know, all of us that want to go in and pour into these youth that are in some horrible, horrible situations. And even if it's just that we're there 1 hour a week and they're there for 21 days, I pray that the seeds that I plant will be watered at some point in life, and they'll remember me. And so we do that every week, my daughter and I, and it's just so much fun. And that's my passion. I just want to empower, inspire, and encourage the next person to do better, be better, and to become better.
Okay, so speaking of that, so there's a young lady who is maybe going through domestic abuse, and she's just feeling like life is over. Like, she may be on the brink of thinking about taking her life. What advice would you give her, Julie?
Well, in that moment of I'm getting ready to take my life, you have to reach out to somebody, because it is so desperate. you're trying to survive. And I truly believe nobody really wants to lose their life. They're really looking for someone to just take notice of them and help them. They don't know how else to say, I need help. So I really feel like if someone's desperate and needs somebody right now, that they pick up the phone and they call somebody. I mean, you can go to my Instagram page, you can go to my Facebook page and get all kinds of inspiration. I'm always open and available to help somebody. But if, you know, my thing is reach out to somebody. You cannot do this on your own. No one expects you to do it on your own. No one, there's just no way. And I had to get some help. My parents told me, they said, you have one or two, you know, things you have to do. You're either going to be Baker acted, you know, we're going to put you in somewhere and you're going to have to stay, or we're going to get you on some medication. And that's when I took that medication and I was like, okay, God, please do something because I can't. And the thing too, I need people to understand about God is this. You're never going to be able to move beyond a situation. Let's say you're struggling with a boy or a girl, whatever, a man or a woman. If you say, God, please just take him out of my life, please, please, please. The thing about God is this, he's going to help you, but you have to be willing to let that person go. He can't do it all. You've got to be willing to put that drug down. You have to be willing to put that man or woman away. He's not going to help you because you have to do the work too. And praying is not, hey, God, give me this. You know that God already knows the desires of our hearts. He knows what we need and what we desire. What our prayers are is our agreement and his alignment with what his plans are for us. So, you know, it's not, hey, I got to pray because I got to get this. He already knows, you know, just be obedient, trust the process. And it's not your time, it's his time.
Yeah.
So,
and I always say faith without works is dead.
Dead. Exactly.
Right? So you can have all the faith and you can do all the praying, but if there's no execution behind it, you know, it's dead, you know, nothing's going to come of it. Okay, so a couple of questions before I let you go, and you've got some people in the audience that are really giving you some love, so I'll go through that in a minute. If you could change anything in your journey, would you change anything, and what would you change?
Absolutely not. It is a beautiful story. I don't think everyone tells me, Julie, you know, you should write, you should be a movie. And it has been, yes, a very difficult journey. I nearly lost my life. I was, you know, left for dead in Miami. And, you know, people are like, why would you ever want that to happen again? It's not that I want it to happen again, but I wouldn't be the woman I am today had I not gone through that. I had to go through. We can't be great unless we go through. And the thing is, God never promised us a perfect life, but he promised us perfect peace. So we have to trust that the things that we go through is because something better is about to come. Yes, did I make some horrible choices? Absolutely. That's why I wrote the book that I did. God didn't say me to be quiet. You know, I'm one of his favorites. So he chose me for this journey, and I'm very grateful. And so, no, I wouldn't change anything. It's turned into a beautiful story.
Yeah, I always say you can't have a testimony without a test, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And so, okay, what is the best advice ever given to you?
Trust the process. Be obedient. Stay the course. Don't give up on yourself. And it's just those things. I mean, I remind myself of that every day. It's like, I can sit here and, you know, come up with, I don't know. It's really about just staying the course, keeping your head down. You know, you're going to get a lot of people that come against you and say certain things and want you to be a certain way. And it's really about what your story is at the end of the day. And that is to allow that to be revealed. And that's through that process of being true to yourself, keeping your head down, trust the process, be obedient, and let God do the rest. And he will. And through that process is purpose. So.
Absolutely. Okay. And your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is actually scripture, and of course, you know, you have the, and that is Jeremiah 29:11, and I know that's so many people's favorite scripture, and you know, it's like God, you know, I know the plans he has for me, and it's to prosper me, to take me to a greater place. He's not here to harm me. He's here to, give me hope and a future. So that scripture is so beautiful to me. I've had it with me all my life. I of course maybe strayed away from that at some point and didn't believe it, but that scripture always took me back, or has taken me back, and I trust God and all he has for me, because all he wants for us is great. He doesn't want mediocre for us. He wants great for us.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned 2 of your books. Could you mention them again so that people can write them down and we can buy them on Amazon, I'm assuming? Is there some
Yes.
place? Okay. And what are the titles, the name of those?
So my own solo project is God Didn't Save Me to Be Quiet, and that's on Amazon. And then I also have another one where it's a what do you call it? Here,
Self-help.
Escaping me.
Okay.
It's actually there's about 14 of us authors that wrote a chapter.
Okay.
So and that's called Not Just Another Story, but Her Story.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us kind of got together and told our story, and it's a really beautiful project. And the other one is just a Christian journal that's out there. But I am writing my own project again, and I'm really excited about it. I hope to have it out by Mother's Day, and that's called Living Your Fifth Quarter. I'm a huge sports fan, and I'm really excited about that project.
Okay. And then also, where can we find your jewelry line? It's J. Kim Concrete by Concrete Rain. Is that?
Yes, so
okay.
That's on Instagram. It's JKIM, JKIMM, which is Julie, myself, Kylie, Isaiah, Marcus, and Matea, my 4 children.
I like that.
Yeah. And Concrete Rain is my ministry. And people ask me all the time, how did you come up with that? And, I just tell them that if I would have named my ministry, I don't know, Gangster for Jesus or something like that, would anybody have ever come to me?
Right.
Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But when you ask the question, that opens the door. You asked me, so I'm going to tell you. So Concrete Rain, concrete, as you know, is foundation, and the foundation that I stand on is God's word, and rain is just symbolic of God. He rains on us the same, whether we're in darkness or in light. His blessings flow abundantly regardless. So it's J. Kim by Concrete Rain, but on my Shopify, it's concreterain.com, where you can find my jewelry.
And lastly, one other thing you mentioned, I know it's a lot, and people, I'm going to have all this information on my website at heyladybytanya.com. You can read Julie's bio. Like I said, it's just mind-blowing. You said the verb kind, is that .com, or is it just?
Yep, theverbkind.com. Yep. Okay. And I don't know, everybody's all over the country. It's our mission and our goal and our dream to have this all over the country. And it excites me so much. You have no idea, because I get so excited about serving others, and especially our youth, because they are our future. But we're starting in Florida. So if you are in Florida and you're watching, please reach out to me, reach out to the Verb Kind. It's my best friend that started this. And we would love to have you to serve in whatever capacity you would like. Okay.
All right. Last but not least, any parting words that you want to leave to anyone? Any last, like I said, any advice? What do you want people to know about you and your story?
I wish I could give you a partying gift. That would be better, right? Everybody gets a gift. I could give everybody bracelets. I think the biggest thing for me is that in whatever you do it in love. You do it with kindness. You spread peace. You spread joy. That is what we're here for. We're here for others, not ourselves. And if you are struggling right now in some capacity like I was, get the help. You're not going to be able to do it on your own, I promise. And it's okay to go to counseling. It's okay to get help. It's okay to raise your hand and the white flag and say, I surrender. But you're not going to be able to keep this cycle going and expect a different outcome. If it's not working the way you're doing it, you've got to do something different. And as hard as it is, I had to do that at 42 years old. And it was very, very difficult in my 40s to say, you know what? I've screwed up so bad, I need help. I had to regain all that credibility back with my children and prove to them that I was healthy, I was whole, and I was never going to go anywhere ever again. That's why when you see me on social media, how much I love my children, how much I I do and love on them because there were so many years that I lost. So I just encourage you to just love on those that are around you, embrace those around you, stop rejecting people, and just and accept that love even when you feel like you can't love yourself.
Love it. That's perfect. And if you need help, ask for help. You know?
Absolutely. Yep.
Miss Julie.
That's the hardest step is
It is
asking.
I know my son tells me that all the time. He says, you know what, Mom, your biggest problem is you don't know how to ask for help. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
God, he's right. So I am
Yep.
learning how to ask for help for sure.
Yep.
Okay, Miss Julie, this has been an amazing 30-something minutes. I thank you so much for your transparency. I thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join me here in the wine room and be featured as my Lady of the Week. Deservedly
Thank you so much.
And before we go, I always like to do a little toast out.
Yes.
So, clink, 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 clink.
Clink, clink, clink. Thank you so much. It's
You're
been a
so
blessing.
welcome. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
And
God bless you.
We'll be in touch soon. Thanks. God bless you too.
Yeah, take care.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye. Wow. You guys, you really need to read her full story. It is mind-blowing. One of the things that she says is what I always say is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. And when she talks about you are what you attract, so if you don't do the work on yourself and you're expecting something good to come to you, that's just not how it works. That's not how the universe works. So I would implore each and every one of you who is possibly going through something, is in the midst of something, to seek help. There's nothing wrong with therapy. Therapy is your friend. Trust. So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Wind Down Wednesday with my Lady of the Week, Miss Julie Gibbs. Again, please go over to my website at heyladybytanya.com and read her bio. If she can do it, so can you. I hope to see you guys next week for another edition of Wind Down Wednesday with my Lady of the Week, Dr. Tabitha Carr. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you guys then. Bye.